There could be perhaps no time when it's been easier in the history of web development to spin up a full stack app with a working database in the cloud within a few minutes. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make a full stack application using NextJS, Postgres, Neon, and Prisma. And I'm going to show you how to do this so you can build a full stack app and take this further, learn some SQL, get away from Mongo if that's the only thing that your bootcamp taught you, which is the most common thing for every coding bootcamp to teach people. So let's get right down to business. We're going to be using Next.js, and you don't need to be an expert in Next.js to follow along. It's just going to make it super simple for us to build a full stack app where we have a back end where we can talk to our database and also have a nice front end where things look decent without having to spin up two separate apps. So let's just get right down to business. I'm in my terminal. You should know where this is. If you don't, turn off this video and go find one of those videos where they teach you the basics of how to use a terminal. Let's do npx create next app. And you might be wondering, oh, what's that thing? What's that cool thing you're using there with that autocomplete? That is Amazon Q Developer. Pretty cool. We're going to make a create next app, and let's call this Prisma practice. I don't know. Terrible name. Name yours something way better than mine. Kind of sucks. Yeah, we're going to use TypeScript. ESLint. Yeah, Tailwind. No for this. Yes for app router. TurboPack. Sure, why not? Do we want to import the alias? Yeah, I do. Maybe you don't. Whatever. That's fine. Bingo, bango. While that's going on, let's go into neon.tech, and we're going to sign up, and we're going to make a new database. So I'm in the console for neon.tech. I'm going to make a new project here, and we're going to call this project Prisma Practice. Oh, God, I kind of hate myself for naming this thing. Whatever. Cloud provider, AWS, region, AWS, whatever. Sure, fine, create it. Hate myself for that name, but hey, what can I do? What can I do? Too late. Too deep in now to change, right? Too deep in now to change. All right, so what do we need to do? We need to set up authentication, or do we actually? I think all we really need to do here, okay, we're gonna save this. Now what I really wanna be able to do is connect this to my database. But before I do that, let's go back in and let's put this project into Cursor. I'm using Cursor. I'm gonna do a bit of vibe coding along with a bit of like real coding, you could say. This is going to be mostly vibe coded, to be completely honest with you. There's not a lot of utility or benefit to writing this by hand. So now I'm in a basic Next.js app using some TypeScript. All the files in here aren't really important. We just want to hook up Prisma, and that's about it, actually. So what I'm going to do is go into Cursor and just say, I want to add Prisma to this project. Please use Yarn to scaffold the project. They used NPM to scaffold this project. I prefer using Yarn. Not a big deal. It's just kind of my personal preference, and I wish I had some really good reasons to tell you, but I've just noticed using Yarn has made my life as a developer a lot easier and having to deal with less conflicts. So I'm going to prefer to use Yarn. I'm going to delete package lock. I'm going to get that out of here, and I'm going to ask it to use Yarn to scaffold the project. It's going to run through some different commands to do it. So it's going to say, cool, we need to run Yarn. We need to add Prisma and Prisma/client. And it won't let me do that. So what I'm going to do is just copy it. Okay, I'm not using NPM for sure. I'm not an NPM hater. I'm just a Yarn liker. Okay, while that's doing junk in the background, let's actually get our database connection so we can begin using this thing in our project. So neon.tech, by the way, is basically a free cloud-based provider where you can host a Postgres database. That's kind of it. It used to be that this would be very difficult, but nowadays you have things like Supabase or Neon, and I'm sure there's others out there too. These are the ones that I'm most familiar with. They're free to set up to a limit, of course. You have to pay if you get really big, but they have these really gracious free tiers you can use to immediately spin up a SQL database. Really fun. SQLs are a very good choice when you're working with data because most data is structured and relational. When you think about most of the data that we use in like real life, if you think about what you might do at your job if you're not a software engineer, or even if you are, how is most data stored? Usually in Excel files in CSV type format, right? So you have tables with rows and columns. So what has tables and rows and columns? Well, SQL. But for some reason, coding boot camps and a lot of smaller companies love to use Mongo. It's because it's fast to spin up and because it's easy to use. Now, this was the case until recently that it was easier to use than SQL. Nowadays, I'd argue that actually spinning up a SQL database is just as easy, and the syntax is easier than working with Mongo, and we'll see that very shortly. So in my dashboard, I'm going to go to connect, and then I'm going to copy this connection string right here. I'm going to copy this, copy it. Cool. We're going to close this. Bingo. You're going to see this. Don't worry. I'm going to erase this later, so don't think you can just hack my database. It's not going to happen, bucko. But, try it out if you are so inclined. Now we're going to make a .env file. So I'm going to do new. I'm going to put database URL equals, oh, look at that. Nope, that's not what I want. I want this. Okay. Okay, let's wrap some quotes around this, even though it's probably not necessary. We're going to save this as a .env file. Use .env. Okay, cool. Cancel that. We have a .env file, and we have a database URL in here, and we've added yarn. And now, okay, waiting for approval. No, skip that. So cool. No, skip that. We're not using npm, you dummy. No, we're not. Oh God, this is why I hate these things. Imagine being a vibe coder and running into this stuff and not knowing how to do this. Okay, we do need to do this. We need to do npx prisma init. This is going to initialize Prisma if it wasn't clear how to run this. This is not run. Okay, cool. It ran. Super cool. Look at that. Now we have Prisma. We have a schema. And this schema file here is going to be representative of our database. This is not like a tutorial on how to use Prisma or the intricacies of writing beautiful SQL. This is just to get you immediately started being able to query and use a database. There's a lot I'm not going to go into here. This is enough to just get you started. And to be honest, if you need handholding through every single piece of doing something and want to see the exact code to write a simple query, you may be in the wrong profession. You can learn lots of this on your own by poking around, having fun. If you don't find this kind of stuff fun, then maybe you don't really want to be a software engineer. Sorry to say. Hope that it's not mean to say, but I think it's just the truth. So now we have a connection from our database to our code base here. Very cool. We're connected from our code base out in the cloud to our database. And the way we're doing that is through this .env file. We're saying, hey, here's the URL so you can go out and interact with this database. And Prisma is handling all that connection for us on our behalf. One problem though, we don't have any tables or data to begin querying. So we should probably do that. So let's make a table. Let's think of the kind of thing that we probably want to use in this app. We could go for the old plain to do thing or something like that. Sure, why not? Let's just make, oh, look what they suggested. This is actually probably a good thing to start with, a user. So when it comes to creating a model or a data type in Prisma, you can simply tell it like, here's the things I'm going to want in this model. Here's the thing in this object that I'm going to want to represent. So we have an ID. It'll be a string, and it's going to be an ID. The default is going to be a unique user ID, or whatever UUID stands for. I forget now, but it's going to be a unique ID. The email is going to be a string, and that string should be unique. You should not have a user with the same email, right? So we're going to enforce that by saying this needs to be unique. These are like decorators, and most of them are pretty intuitive if you think about it. You don't need to really worry about these too much. These things are probably more important or as important to know. They're going to have a password, which is going to be a string. In fact, I don't think we need a password at this point. I don't care about that. We want to keep the time they were created at and the time they were updated at. This is pretty important in case you want to run things like analytics or understand like when a change was made or why it was made and be like, oh no, on this date, the email got updated. Oh, we're screwed now. Or when was the last time this user was updated? Or when was the last time this user came to the system or whatever? When was this user created? I don't know. These are things you typically want to know. So let's just do this. Let's make this. And now we want to have this data that we've written here. We want to reflect this in our database. This is going to be kind of fun. So now let's just go into our agent here using cursor and say, now create a migration file. A migration file is basically when the code you write here generates this migration script that runs some SQL, and then it pushes it out to your actual database in the cloud. So the data here will be making a new table in our database. Let's check it out. So we can run this command, bingo, bango. Okay. I'm just going to copy that thing. I don't know why. Blah, 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 blah. Let's do this. npx prisma migrate dev. All right, let's go in here. All right, now that this has run, we see that we have a migrations folder. We have a migrations file that's been created under a folder with the exact date and the name, the initialized like SQL migration. So it creates this cool SQL based on this. It looks at this and it's like, okay, cool. Here's what you've made. Now here's some SQL that's going to reflect that change. Very, very cool. Now all we got to do is add some data to this table. Very cool. If we go to neon.tech and I go to my tables here and I see that one, we have a Prisma migrations table, which tells us obviously the migrations we've run. So we can look at them, we can roll them back, we can change things. So if you mess up, by the way, and you say, oh, you know what I messed up on? You know what we actually should have a password. Oh, God dang it. So you go in here, you say, okay, let's actually do a password. Password is going to be a string. Why not? Screw it. I don't think you should have passwords in here, but why not? Let's do another migration, and we're just going to do npx migrate dev. And this is going to create a migration file. It's probably going to ask us the name that we want to use for this migration file, and we'll tell it, and it will generate the SQL. And the next thing you know, it'll be in our database as well. So the name for this new migration is add password to user. I'm using snake case to do this. This is a typical convention for writing your migration files. You don't have to, but this is the way that you'll see most people doing it. So add underscore password to underscore user, whatever, right? Something that looks like that. So I enter, and it's going to create the SQL file that we're going to see shortly. Cool. And now I can go to the new SQL file here, and you see, what do? We altered the table, and we added a new column. And the new column has a password, and it cannot be null. Now, if we go to our user table here, and we look, we see, okay, we have an ID, email, created at, and updated at. If I refresh this, I bet you we're going to see now that we now have a password. Yes, we do. Very cool. Now, what would be really cool is if we could add some records into this database. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our SQL editor. And again, I'm going to use something like Cursor or ChatGPT to just generate me some SQL to add like 20 random users in here with some passwords. And these passwords are going to be completely useless and not protected, and terrible idea, but this is just for the sake of having some fun and some illustrations. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, I said, hey, make me a SQL script to add 20 random users to my database that I can run in Postgres. Let's see what it comes up with. Oftentimes these are not right, but sometimes it's decent enough to get you at least started. And okay, looks like we got, great. Let's take this. We're not going to actually, you don't need to generate anything. Stop doing that. I hate when it does that. That is one of my biggest complaints. It's like, I don't want you to actually run it. I just want you to give me the script so I can run it. And now I'm back here. I kind of don't think this is going to work, but let's see. It forgot the password. So we're going to have to add that in here. Password. And you could obviously use ChatGPT or Cursor or whatever to do this. I'm going to dump this in ChatGPT and ask it to make me some stuff here. So update this script to use a password as well. Hopefully that's enough information for ChatGPT to just kind of know what to do. Got it. You want it? Okay, cool. So what it's going to do is generate all this stuff for me. ID, email, created at, updated at, and the password. All password 123. Sweet, sweet move here. So this is exactly what I like to use AI for, or large language models, ChatGPT, whatever, because I don't want to write all this stuff out by hand. This is completely worthless stuff to do. Now, understanding how this actually works is really good to know, right? So look at this. We have a count of 20, and we can go in here. And let me show you how simple it is to write some basic SQL. If we want to just select star from user, and let's run it. And user is in quotes because that's the name of the table we created. If we had a table called cats, we would say select star from cats, like select everything from table, right? And we see, oh, cool, we have all the different things here. We have Jane and John Doe and Jennifer and Charles and all these weirdos in our database. So freaking cool. Now we're going to do the next thing, which is going to be yarn. Wait, actually, I think we're going to do npx Prisma generate. Generate is going to basically give us all the types of the tables that we have. Like we have a table with certain types, like email is a string, password's a string, ID is a unique ID. So we have all these different types that we want to be able to use in our code here. So we go to schema.prisma, we have user here. That's the only thing we have right here. And we have dates and strings is our types. Now we want to use this in our code base. So in order to use this in our code base, let's go to like, oh, look at this generated, whatever this is. What the hell is this? I don't think I actually want this at all. I'm going to get rid of this actually, because I don't really want that at all. We're going to remove this. I don't actually know what the generated stuff is doing. I don't think we need it, so let's just get rid of it if you have it there. So we have some migrations. We've seen how to add things to a table, how to initialize a table. Now let's see how to actually interact with the data. So we have this page here. And what we can do here is import Prisma client from Okay, new Prisma client. Not now. Don't ask me that again, you idiot. I don't want to know. So this would actually be in a different file. In my opinion, I would like to have this in some other file so we don't have to initialize it. Like initializing a new Prisma client on a page, not a great way to do this. So actually, this is exactly why we have cursor. And this is something you wouldn't immediately know to do anyway. So let's do this. Let's have a lib folder with Prisma where we initialize the client and make it a singleton. If you don't know what singleton is, this is a common pattern in software where you only have one instance of a class. And the reason why you only want to have one instance of this class is because this is Prisma and this is a database connection. So we don't want to have multiple database connections open. Could you imagine if you had like 5 open? Like what if you had 5 different pages and each one had its own Prisma connection? That could be bad pretty quickly because what would happen is you could be either draining resources or you could be doing weird things that cause race conditions where basically one page could be updating something at the same time if it wasn't closed down properly, and another page or another component could be updating something and you don't know who's responsible for making these updates. It could just lead to all sorts of weird issues. And at the very least, I think you'd get some warnings from Prisma saying, hey, you have like 20 connections open. Why are you doing that? So we just want to have one single connection and avoid exhausting the database connections. So let's do that. So let's review the next file. No, I don't want that stupid thing in there. Okay, we're going to accept this. That looks pretty cool here. And let's go back to page and let's get rid of this. Now watch this. This is where the real fun comes in here. So we're going to import Prisma from lib.prisma. And now we have users. When we hover over users, let's see what's in users here. Okay, what the hell? Users is never used. Okay, yeah, we get it. Users is never used. What if we console log users? Just to satisfy the compiler real quick. This says any prisma.user. Okay. Prisma.user. What I'm hoping to see here is the fact that we have something that tells us the kind of data that user is, because Prisma actually creates that connection for us. And I think the reason we're not seeing the types, like I'd expect to see user not as any, but as like a type. So let's do npx prisma generate and just make sure that we actually get this generated type definitions here so we have this, so this actually works the way we expect. And look at that. Once we do npx prisma generate, now we see what the users are. This is the chef's kiss when it comes to using things like Prisma, that not only are you able to interact with the database and you do something like Prisma dot, whatever. We only have one table at this point. So we can do Prisma dot user dot find first, or find, we could do find, I guess, or find one, or what, Prisma.users.query. Anyway, let's just do find many. Let's just give me all the freaking ones. I'm not going to show you how to write a query here. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. I've used Prisma a ton, but of course, as soon as I start doing it here, it doesn't work out so well. So we are connected to our database. We're making a query to our database in this simple little line here. We're using this in NextJS in our front-end application. We have no API route set up at all. All we're doing is simply querying a database, and now we can actually look at the users. And then we can even take this a step further. Let's get rid of all this nonsense here we don't care about. I don't care about any of that stuff. And we're going to do users, not map user. And we know that user has an ID and it has an email. And we could even do their password too. Wouldn't that be awful? Let's show their password. Password. Terrible of us. How bad are we right here? Okay. User.password. Password. Don't show. All right. Let's run this thing real quick here. Password okay, whatever. I'll satisfy this thing. Do not show. Okay, now we're running this thing. Let's go to localhost 3000. And what do you know? We're going to look at that. Evil stuff going on here. Now I've showed you how to use Prisma, how to set it up from scratch, connect to a database, then start querying that data. And the next step, of course, is how can you do things like create, read, update, delete data. We have read the data, but now you can add more things. You can add more tables. You can do more interesting things like maybe clicking on a button that would destroy some data, delete some data. You can do all sorts of terrible things here now, which is kind of fun. This is where you need to explore on your own, but now you actually have a SQL database set up in the cloud and the ability to connect to it and see the data in your front end app. I hope you found this cool, and obviously you should take this further, extend it, learn more about SQL, but that's as much as I think I can show you in a short amount of time without getting everybody really bored and turning their computer off. Anyway, hope you found that useful, and I'll see you around.